Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
James O'Keefe
The
finally
news of
got
the
here.
hour.
Yes.
Hello.
Woo, James.
What up, dog?
I had to charter a plane.
Oh my
to
God.
get
Tell us
here.
about that.
I'm so
I was
glad
at
you're
a secret
here.
location doing some guerrilla.
Yes,
guerrilla
guerrilla
journalism.
warfare.
So in the instance of Jack Dorsey, it was a really fascinating revelation. When I told him, you have a policy against misgendering people. Your rule set penalizes the conservative worldview. Therefore, a conservative who expresses their worldview will be banned from your platform. Your rules are biased against the conservative worldview. And it was like the first time he had ever heard that.
I go back to Orwell constantly because I feel like this book answers so many of these questions. And what scares me about the Orwell book is when Winston, the protagonist, this is the Winston Smith, is being tortured by O'Brien, the tyrant. And every one of us has got fears. Imagine your worst fear in the world. And the tyrants have figured out that they have Winston. They've put a cage on his face and they put a rat. The biggest fear of Winston is a rat. And he says, 2 + 2 = 5. Please tell us that 2 + 2 = 5. And Winston says, no, 2 + 2 = 4. And the tyrant opens up the door and the rat's coming towards his face. And finally, Winston says, okay, 2 + 2 is whatever you want it to be. 2 + 2 is whatever you want. Just don't put the rat in my face. None of us are that strong.
I don't agree.
I don't agree with you.
There are 4 lights. It's from The Next Generation, Star Trek. Captain Picard is kidnapped and tortured by the Cardassians, and there are 4 lights in front of him, and he keeps saying, there are 5 lights. Now tell me, how many lights are there? And Picard refuses to say there are 5 lights, and he says, there are 4 lights.
Was he tortured?
Yeah.
Or like the Goldstein manual in Orwell's 1984, and they have this cognitive dissonance where they don't even concede the notion of doublethink. And they've convinced themselves through some type of strange psychosis.
Do you know what happens when someone is experiencing cognitive dissonance and you present absolute proof that their worldview is incorrect, or at least a portion of it? You know what their reaction is? Blind rage.
Skin in the game is a term that my colleague Eric Cochran used, who blew the whistle on Pinterest. Eric Cochran said, I have to have skin in the game because we only live our lives for so long. Life is short. My advice to you is, sir, is to get involved locally and to be an investigative reporter on the local level, as Luke has done. And it'll mean something after you're gone. And I think we don't realize, and I think people are beginning to wake up and understand that we have to be the media. Stop complaining about how biased they are and just go out and do their jobs. I mean, when I did the Acorn story 10 years ago, I walked in Baltimore, Maryland. My colleague Hannah was dressed like a Miami hooker. She was 20 years old. And within minutes, these pseudo-government agents were telling us how to disguise underage hookers as dependents on our tax forms. It was amazing how easy it was to just get people to just talk.
And Jon Stewart sang your praises, saying, journalists, where are you? Look at this kid. Look what he's doing.
And the United States Senate voted 83-7 in a democratically controlled House and Senate to defund Acorn. That was 10 years ago.
Victory.
And this is a girl that messaged me. Hannah messaged me on Facebook. I've never met her before. She said, James, you think it'd be a good idea to go into Acorn dressed as a hooker. Now, most people get these sorts of slide into the DMs.
Right.
Slide into the DMs. They delete them as spam. I said, that's a great idea. There should be a pimp in the situation.
That's me.
And, be a citizen journalist. Go out there and just go do it. I think more people are willing to risk their lives than their own reputations. Think about it. How many people in Washington, D.C. are willing to risk their reputation for a cause greater than themselves? I can't think of maybe 1 or 2. I can think of many folks who've made the ultimate sacrifice that is beyond anything I can comprehend, go overseas and die for their country. I can't think of many members of Congress or people working in government that would be willing to make even a sacrifice of their own reputation for a cause greater than themselves. I think this road to truth. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've been through a lot of pain. There are moments of ups and downs where I thought it was over. I mean, I've been in federal prison and for falsely accused. I mean, of something I did not do. And everyone abandoned me in that moment. No, everyone thought I was done. James, you're over, including my mentor. So I know what it's like, and I know that the road to truth and justice, you're going to go through this, and I don't think people are willing to, and it's a political prosecution, and to be tarred and feathered is almost in the mind, in the psychology of the American people, is almost worse than death, because I can see people with the courage to run up a hill with a bayonet, but a more rare form of courage is moral courage. That is to stick by a cause which is losing.
They don't believe in themselves.
I don't know why that is. I think that's the question, because if you can solve that question, you can actually change things. When you've been accused of a felony you have not committed and had a federal and arrested by the FBI, put in shackles, thrown in federal prison, it is amazingly humbling. And of course, and I said this story. Their first temptation is to talk.
Yeah.
Let's say the feds arrest you tomorrow and just made up some bullshit and totally false. Yeah. The first thing you would think psychologically is, and everyone thinks, "Oh, I'm smart enough. I would Miranda rights." No, my friend. When you're shackled at 24 years old, you're pissing your pants. You don't think rationally. When you're in not handcuffs but shackles. I talked to the FBI because I didn't know any better. I thought, no, I didn't do it. And then they use every word against you because that's what they do.
But it
humbles you, and you think, okay, now I know the level I'm playing at.
Awesome.
When your heroes become your rivals. I want to tell a 1 or 2 minute story about Dean Baquet, executive editor of the New York Times. I was at a conference at Duquesne University 2.5 years ago giving a speech, and they invited me, to my shock. And I walked up to Dean Baquet, and I tried to shake his hand. This is the head of the New York Times. And I've ambushed him a few times. But, we're at this conference, and I thought maybe we could have a small talk. Hey, Dean, how you doing? He literally turned his back to me and cowered.
Jeez.
like a little coward. And he pretended like I wasn't there, and he said, please go away. And at that moment, there was still like 4% of me that cared about what the New York Times thinks of me. But that just vanished. The moment you stop caring about what they think of you is the moment you're finally free. And we say, okay, that's easy to do, but it's not. The moment you stop caring about what the New York Times thinks of you, and you know what? Most people in the conservative movement care so much about their Twitter accounts. If I said, well, and they lie about it, Tim. They say they don't, but they do.
Oh yeah.
And the moment you stop caring about what Jack Dorsey thinks about you is the moment you're free. That goes back to my statement that if doing the right thing required for a temporary amount of time, maybe even some of your life, being thought ill of and defamed by all the people you want to be liked by. The most prescient statement I've ever heard on the topic was by Rush Limbaugh, who once told me, and I think he said this publicly, but he also told me one-to-one, was, James, the hardest thing to accept about my life is being hated by all the people that I wanted to be liked by.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a cliche. Of course, yes, of course. But no. That's actually the hardest part about this job for me. And I'm being honest. My Wikipedia page is awful. And everyone I go speak to, one of the first things, God, your Wikipedia page is terrible.
But
it's awful.
You realize it's because you're not playing the game the same way they are.
But let's just pause and think about that for a minute, because it sounds like a cliche. Of course they're going to. No. This is a really hard thing to psychologically accept. And I don't care who you are. If you're a human, it's no fun to be on by everyone. CNN, the New York Times. I mean, they just Sunday criticizing, and it's almost become a cliche. Well, of course. No, not of course. This is a hard thing to accept, and it's a hard thing to endure. As I'm getting here, this is the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. We just broke it. I broke it on Twitter. I'm back on Twitter. Project Veritas has been permanently suspended. So we just broke a story. Mark Zuckerberg on the hidden camera, or he's covertly recorded on one of his staff calls, taking this anti-COVID vaccine stance in violation of Facebook's own policy. Zuckerberg says, my understanding, this is a quote from Zuckerberg now, not me. My understanding is that these vaccines modify DNA and RNA. Now, Facebook has a policy implemented recently. You're not allowed to say that. So I was thinking, would me quoting Zuckerberg, playing the videotape of Mark Zuckerberg, get banned on Facebook?
Yeah.
Because it's in violation of Facebook's own policy. It probably would. Brian Fung of CNN says that we were repeated violation of the company's, quote, anti-doxing policies. But then just Sunday, Ana Cabrera was on with Brian Stelter, and she said that Project Veritas was removed for misinformation.
Down to try to stop the spread of misinformation and to hold some people who are spreading it accountable. Brian, for example, Twitter has suspended the account of Project Veritas.
So CNN's own reporters are contradicting each other. They're just making stuff up.
So what you're saying is you're gonna get a retracto out of this.
Our lawyer has sent a letter to CNN corporate. David Vigilante is the general counsel of CNN. And we are going to get a retracto out of this.
Yes.
Retracto the correction alpaca. So what happened here was when you are flagged, Twitter gave us the option. It said you can simply get your account reinstated at Project Veritas by deleting this tweet.
Yes.
They want us to delete the tweet, the video of my reporter Christian Hartsock with a camera and a flag mic. You could see the flag mic. There's no hidden camera recording here. In a street on a sidewalk outside the house of Facebook vice president.
Was this public property?
What was his name? Guy Rosen.
Was this public property?
This was a public street, a residential street, and his residence. And we're following the lead of CNN. CNN goes and doorstops people, local TV news. So Christian Hartsock asks Guy Rosen for comment on this is maybe the biggest public policy story of our lives. He's vice president of Facebook. And then Twitter says you need to take down this video clip off Twitter. But I decided I'm not going to do that, Tim. I would be against my conscience. I'm going to appeal it. I knew it was a risk. And usually when you appeal, it takes a week or two to do. And then in the middle of the day, Twitter got bombarded with phone calls by the New York Times, CNN, and everyone else. And Twitter changed their minds. We're now going to ban Project Veritas forever, permanently suspended.
Can I point out the beautiful irony of, was it Ana Cabrera, I think you said? Was that
Ana
her?
Cabrera.
Saying that you were suspended permanently for misinformation, and that statement itself is misinformation.
I have the two statements.
It's like a fire truck on fire.
By the way, we were going to get our lawyer. We could always just sue CNN. We've sued the New York Times. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I've got two statements from CNN in front of me right now. One is from Brian Fung, CNN Business, who's actually a pretty nice, I think he's a serious reporter. And he says that Veritas was suspended for, quote, threats of sharing other people's private information. I have
Wait, threats?
And then I have a statement from Ana Cabrera. This is on the air with Brian Stelter on Sunday. Quote, Twitter has suspended the account of Project Veritas. I'm quoting her now, so it's not my words, forgive me. Quote, a conservative actionist, activist organization, at least that's how they couch themselves. I have never in my life referred to myself as a conservative activist. Not once. I will swear to it under oath in a defamation lawsuit against CNN, unless they retract that. And then she goes on, quote, this is a much broader crackdown by social giants on accounts promoting misinformation. So our general counsel has just sent a letter to David Vigilante today. I have the letter in front of me, signed. A failure to retract will sue. By the way, these organizations are used to throwing the spear at civilian, innocent people. They're not used to the spear being thrown at them. Mm-hmm. I've sued the New York Times for defamation in the New York Supreme Court, and we're going to get past motion to dismiss in a lawsuit. We talked about this last time. You and I talked about this. We need to sue the out of them. And I'm not doing it to harass. I'm doing it because that's justice. If you lie, if you intentionally disregard the truth, that's called actual malice. I'm a public figure. You can't, under the law of New York State, intentionally lie. We'll get past motion to dismiss, and then you get into depositions. That means I put Dean Baquet, executive editor of the New York Times, in a chair, and he's required by the law to answer my questions under oath.
So
I mean,
they'll side with them.
It's a legitimate, and I think the same psychological effect has on people. I've noticed it since Project Veritas has been banned. I don't want to share Project Veritas because I might be banned. I want people to draw an analogy. That's like saying I don't want to tell the truth because the New York Times might be mean to me. Okay? Let's treat Twitter like the New York Times. Don't draw a distinction between big tech and big media. They are one and the same. And Veritas has never lost a lawsuit. I always talk about that. We've never lost a lawsuit, never settled a lawsuit. So they fear me. They fear litigation. And the reason they fear it is the reason you said, discovery. When people don't understand depositions, they get all the emails. They've looked at all my emails. That's why I'm so clean. I've never broken the law. At Project Veritas, we're so clean because they look at all of our emails. They can't find anything. But what happens when you open up CNN's emails, Tim? When you get Brian Stelter, Ana Cabrera, and Brian Fung in a deposition chair under oath. So Cabrera says one thing. They're going to be attacking each other. Just be a journalist. Go out and do it. You don't need that much training. Just take a camera and go start asking questions.